A 16-year-old boy made the decision to run away from home, fueled by excitement and a sense of adventure. Without saying goodbye to his family, he packed his bags. He headed out into the wide-open world with his companion. After he arrived in the city, he eagerly searched for a job. He was overjoyed when he finally found employment as a construction worker. Nobody knows it yet, but this young man will grow up to be a powerful chaebol someday. The individual has made significant contributions to the expansion of the South Korean economy. This is the story of Chung Ju Yung, an ambitious entrepreneur and visionary businessman from South Korea who founded Hyundai Group. A man who started out with nothing and rose to build one of the most successful conglomerates in his country. Chung Ju Yung was born on November 25, 1915, in the city of Tongkon, located in the province of Gangwon-do in the far north of Korea. Today, it can be found in the province of Gangwon in North Korea. Born as the oldest son of a low-income farming family in Korea, he spent his childhood in poverty. After completing elementary school, he was compelled to immediately begin working in order to contribute financially to the upkeep of his family. When Chung turned 16, he and a buddy decided to leave their small town in search of employment opportunities in the city of Seishan. They want to escape the harshness of rural life. Following a journey that spanned 15 miles and some of the most challenging terrain in the Peichon Valley, they arrived in the town of Kogen. It is where they found work in the construction industry. They worked hard for low pay, but Chung was proud of the fact that he could provide for himself. He and his friend were able to work for 2 months before Chung's father became aware of their whereabouts. This was an exciting turn of events for the two young men, as they had been able to earn money and live on their own. And let Chung Ju Yung understand that he had a passion for civil engineering. Back in Gazan-ri, Suseong-gun, his homeland, he began plotting his next escape. This time in the direction of Seoul. In April of 1933, Chung embarked on the journey to Keijo with 2 other people. The trip looked like it was going to end badly from the start, especially since one of the boys was caught by one of his siblings early on. Yet, another terrible thing happened when Chung and his friend were duped by a stranger who promised them jobs but took all their money instead. This dark-haired man seemed trustworthy at first, but he quickly took advantage of their situation. He must have known that they are new to the place. This was just the beginning of their string of unfortunate events. However, the adventure ended when Chung's father discovered his son and his friend staying at the adjacent home of Chung's grandfather. Therefore, they must be returned to Asan, his hometown. At his home, Chung helps his father on the family farm. During that time, he didn't give up on escaping from poverty. After serving his family for a year, he decided to make another attempt at fleeing. Unfortunately, he is short on funds for the trip. He needed 71 for a train fare, so he sold one of his father's cows. With the money, he bought a ticket and rode the train excitedly. Chung enrolled in a local bookkeeping school upon arriving in Seoul with the intention of mastering accounting. He was excited to start a new chapter in his life and looked forward to learning everything he could about bookkeeping. Everything ran smoothly for 2 months until his father found him and, after a short argument, brought him back to Gazan. In 1933, when Chung was 18 years old, he made the decision to attempt an escape for the 4th time. He fled through the night with a buddy to avoid being pushed into an arranged marriage. When he finally arrived in Seoul, he wasted no time applying for whatever job he could find. He got his start in the workforce in Incheon, where he performed manual labor. His subsequent careers included stints as a handyman at a starch syrup company and a construction worker at Bozong Professional School. Chung found employment at the Bokyung rice store in Seoul after spending nearly a year working at the syrup factory. He was employed there as a deliveryman. Chung's new employment provided him with opportunities for promotion. As he became more successful in those roles, he decided to continue working there full-time. After some time, he earned the acclaim of the rice store's regular customers, which left the proprietor quite inspired. Therefore, he gave Chung permission to manage the store's accounts after working there for 6 months. His time spent working as an accountant in a retail establishment was crucial in his overall development of a strong business sense. The rice store owner became ill in 1937, and he and his family decided it would be better for him to hand over control of the business to Chung. At the age of 22, Chung gladly took ownership of the store and renamed it the Kyungil Rice Store. He became determined to make a name for himself and build an empire. His passion and hard work paid off, and the business thrived. However, at the beginning of 1939, the business starts to go down. It was when Japan began securing rice supplies for the country and its military as part of its war operations. They enforced a repressive rice rationing system, which resulted in Korean enterprises ceasing their rice trading activities. Due to the bad situation, Chung gave up his store and returned to his hometown. In 1940, he decided to give it another go in Seoul. It is when he tried the auto repair business. Chung went into auto repair after realizing that the Japanese colonial authorities limited Koreans' access to a wide range of industries. He established the Ado service garage with the assistance of a loan of 3,000 won by using a service garage that he had acquired from a friend. After barely 3 years of business experience, Chung substantially boosted their revenue. During that time, the number of employees increased from 20 to 70. As a contribution to the war effort in 1943, the Japanese colonial administration ordered the garage to combine operations with a nearby steel mill. Chung returned to Gazan with a savings of 50,000 yen despite the Japanese having suppressed his businesses and forced them to close down. He established Hyundai and Hyundai Civil Industries in 1946, shortly after the country was freed from Japanese occupation. Hyundai quickly became a leading company in Korea thanks to its innovative and efficient production methods. Chung leaped at the chance to enter the construction industry when a massive building project began. Because his younger sibling could speak English and get along well with U.S. Army engineers, he was given contracts to build facilities for the people there by U.S. forces. The outbreak of war in Korea in 1950, which placed the northern and southern parts of the peninsula against each other and their respective governing superpowers, hindered his company's growth. Chung abandoned all of his construction projects and fled with his younger brother to the city of Busan to find someplace more secure to live. It was there that he welcomed his son, Chung Mong-jun. Chung rebuilt the business after the retaking of Seoul by UN forces. He secured further contracts from the Americans after the city had been retaken. After that point, Chung continued to expand and diversify the business until it became one of the most significant businesses in South Korea. Chung kept expanding the business by soliciting contracts from the United Nations Command and the Korean Ministry of Transportation whenever he could. The fortunes of Chung's Hyundai Group, along with those of other significant chaebols, were bolstered thanks to the business's connections with the political elite of South Korea. In 1961, General Park Chung-hee led a military coup establishing a military junta. Park was adamant that South Korea should become industrialized to become independent of its need for foreign help. Along with the expansion of this government program, Chung's economic interests also continued to grow. Because of Chung's networking with the general, his company was chosen to construct the Soyeongang Dam. The following year after that, they constructed the Gyeongbu, Seoul-Busan Expressway, South Korea's first major roadway, and finished in 1970. The Hyundai Motor Company was established in the year 1967. He established a factory for automobile production at Ulsan, located on the country's southeastern coast. The company's assembly factory in Ulsan was finished the following year. Chung made the decision to assemble a Ford automobile in his plant. In 1968, Hyundai and Ford Motor Company worked together to successfully assemble their first vehicle at Hyundai's plant in Ulsan, South Korea. That vehicle was a Cortina. Hyundai set the record for the quickest time between breaking ground and full-scale operations for any Ford assembly facility worldwide. It took less than 6 months. Despite having no background in shipbuilding, Chung Ju Yung was driven by a desire to start the Ulsan shipyard. In 1971, Chung met with bankers from the prestigious Barclays House in London to obtain money to start a shipbuilding company. He presented the bank with a 501 note that included an illustration of the world's first ironclad ship, which was constructed in Korea in 1592, to assuage their concerns. It only took 3 years to complete the first ship since Chung built the shipyard and the ship at the same time. Hyundai Heavy Industries flourished and, within 30 years, grew to become the world's largest shipbuilder of commercial vessels. Chung desired to broaden the reach of his business outside the limits of South Korea, despite the success he had achieved within the country. In the 1970s, Hyundai Engineering and Construction competed for and was awarded lucrative contracts for various construction projects in the Middle East. One of these projects involved the construction of a sizable oil terminal port facility. The initial success of the Cortina, followed by its eventual dominance of the European market, led Chung Ju Yung to decide to design its own automobile. In February of 1974, the business decided to engage George Turnbull. He had previously served as the managing director of Austin Morris at British Leyland. Turnbull did not waste time and promptly hired 6 European chief engineers to assist him. These chief engineers included a body designer,
They worked together
2 chassis
to design
designers,
the pony,
production
shown for the
engineers,
first time
and
at
a
the
test
Turin
motor
Motor
show in October 1974, followed by its debut on the market 3 years later in December 1975. The vehicle was referred to as the Kukmincha, which is Swahili for car for the people. This tiny rear-wheel drive automobile was the first mass-produced by the South Korean automotive industry. Giorgetto Giugiaro was responsible for its design. For several years, it served as Hyundai's primary advertising vehicle. In 1976, Hyundai began shipping their pony automobiles to Chile, Argentina, Colombia, and Egypt markets. 1978 saw the beginning of exports to Europe, beginning with Belgium and the Netherlands and then adding Greece not long after. Chung founded Hyundai Electronics at the beginning of the 1980s out of concern that Samsung would continue dominating the electronic goods market. Hyundai Electronics quickly became a successful manufacturer of computer semiconductor chips. In 1984, Hyundai started shipping the Pony to Canada, and the company's sales there significantly surpassed its projections. There was a time when the automobile sold the most in Canada. The subsequent year saw the launch of the first generation of the Hyundai Sonata and the company's production of the 1 millionth vehicle. By 1986, the Pony XL had been the very first Hyundai vehicle to be offered for sale in the American market. It was the first automobile made by the firm that had front-wheel drive, and Giorgetto Giugiaro was the designer of both the new model and the original Pony. In its first year in the United States market, it established a new all-time sales record of 168,000 units, which continues to stand to this day. The car's reasonable price was one of the factors that led to its nomination as Best Product No. 10 by Fortune magazine. A little bit of time passed, and Hyundai continued to develop new strategies and strengthen its standing as a dominant international producer of automobiles. Chung continued to grow his Hyundai Group, which eventually comprised 86 different businesses at its peak. He was a fierce competitor in the business world, always working hard to stay one step ahead of other leading Korean chaebols like Samsung and Daewoo. The aggregate revenues of Hyundai in 1999 reached $80 billion, making Chung's empire the largest of the 5 great chaebols in South Korea. This was also the year that Hyundai became a public company. Chung had been ordered by the South Korean government to break up some of Hyundai's subsidiaries. Even so, the implacable tycoon continued to resist until May of 2000, when he was finally forced to give in by his creditors. Chung was estimated to have a net worth of $6.2 billion. Still, he resided in a humble home constructed from the scraps of construction materials left over from his enterprise. Until his health started deteriorating, he traveled 3 miles from his home in Seoul to his office daily by foot. In March of 2001, he passed away at his home in Seoul from natural causes at age 85. Chung, one of the most prosperous and esteemed businessmen in Korean history, left an indelible mark on every facet of modern Korean society and economy. I am grateful that you watched till the end. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.